So you're thinking about moving to Grandbury, Texas. Well, in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the real estate market in Grandbury. What is it like there? How does it compare to the rest of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex? And if you stick around to the very end, we're going to be talking about Lake Grandbury. So the ins and outs, where to drive, where not to drive, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, let's hop to it. My name is Tom Jung. I'm with Tom's Texas Realty Group, and we get phone calls every day from folks just like you, whether you're a few days or a few months out. My team and I are standing by ready to help, so please don't hesitate to reach out. One of the best ways to get in touch with us is the Zoom link on our YouTube page, but call, text, email, all that stuff is great. So a couple of things about Grandbury. So if you're not familiar with Grandbury, it is the second most retired town. the second most popular destination for retirees in Texas, and retirees make up about 30% of the population. And I think one of the big draws to it is, well, there's a lot of draws to it. One, it's got a lake, right? You've got Lake Grandbury. They've got a really cool town square with different restaurants, coffee shops, things to do. They've always got events going on. So throughout the year, there's parades, there's markets, there's art festivals, there's just a little bit of everything throughout the year. There's always something to do. I think there's a big wine festival towards the end of the year. You've got breweries, wineries. The schools are, I think, a little bit better than the state average. Nothing to get super excited about, but they've got good schools and it's affordable. A lot of times you've got lower property taxes, and then they've got a bunch of golf courses, right? So if you're retired, you want to go play some golf, they've got that as well. So there's a lot to do in Grandbury, and you're not far from all the big city stuff as well. So you're only about 45 minutes from Fort Worth and all that Fort Worth has to offer. So for those reasons, Grandbury is a great spot to land. Now, the current state of the real estate market is a bit slower than Dallas and Fort Worth. So what I've got up here on my screen is our trends. This is where we analyze a lot of big numbers and all the major trends that are going on. So this is going to give you an idea of the overall market there. So this first screen that we're looking at is Grandbury and the median sales price for the homes there, right? And so the blue line is Grandbury. This green line here is the entire MLS. So this is the entire North Texas area. And then I've also got Weatherford on there, which is the red line. The reason I put this on there is there's a lot of folks that are, they're not wanting to be in Fort Worth. They're not wanting to be in the big city. They want to be a little further out. And so Weatherford and Grandbury tend to be two of those popular destinations. So just to give folks an idea of how they stack up, Weatherford's going to be a little bit more expensive, and it's actually quite surprising. But I will say this: one of the reasons that Weatherford may be a little bit higher is there's more land that goes along with those houses. So really, as far as like bang for your buck, you do get more in Weatherford than you're going to get in if you average the MLS out. But I believe that's why it's going to be a little bit higher, that you see this red line. All right, so we're going to hop over to days on market. So in a balanced market, you've got 6 months worth of inventory, which means if you stopped listing today, we'd run out in 6 months. That's, usually 5 to 7, somewhere in there is what they consider a balanced market. Now, everything got thrown out of whack after COVID, and we had a ton of people move here. There's still people moving here. And then, it's kind of finding that equilibrium. So these right here, this represents days on market. So if we look over here at Grandbury, these are days on market. 38 month supply is what I was referring to. 6 months worth of supply in a balanced market. And what we're going to see here is there's more inventory in both Grandbury and Weatherford, actually, than there is on the MLS, right? So the MLS right now, we're at about 3 months worth of inventory, which makes sense. We see this when we're making offers and things like that. When we're selling properties, there's we're not getting a ton of competition on everything. We'll get multiple offers on certain houses, but it's like we're not getting a whole lot of crazy, hey, I'm going to pay way over or anything like that. So that's a question I get pretty often. Now, if it's just like one of those amazing properties, you're going to have some competition. But for the most part, it's not going to be too bad. And okay, so month supply. So what's interesting about this, and if let me click back over here. If we go to month supplies and we pick a certain price range, so like 3 to 500,000, what we're gonna find here is that our supply, months worth of supply, is a little bit lower. And if you go to $1 million or more, that's where things get real interesting. The days on market are pretty high, 8 months worth of inventory, right? Which means, you know, what you would think is that if you've got this much inventory, then it's going to take you longer to sell those properties. And if we go to days on market for $1 million or more, it's only 29 days, right? So it's like, what's going on here? Because there's way more inventory coming onto the market in that $1 million price point, but they're still moving quick. And I think a big reason for that is going to be all your lake homes. So these are all the lake homes that have sold in the past 30 days and everything that's on the market. And it's quite a bit. And then let's go to $1 million or more. We're going to pop back over here. It makes up almost all there's like another 15 homes that are in that $1 million price range that are not on the lake, right? So I think the reason why we're seeing some kind of wacky numbers with the trends is because the lake properties are sought after. Any lake in the North Texas area, it's going to be very competitive. Prices have gone way up since COVID, and they don't seem to be coming back down. There's just a lot of demand for lakes, especially when you got 107 degrees out, as it's been for the last month, it seems like. So anyways, that's a little bit about that. So let's talk a little bit about, I guess, all the averages, all that kind of stuff. So median sales price, about $340,000. You have about 25% of the homes that are sold in Grandbury are new homes. Now, most of those are not on the lake, but they do have some. So I'm going to show you real quick. If we zoom in here, there are some lots right here that are not for sale yet. They're going to be for sale. And this is a good area. You've got, just to give you some reference here, if this will load, this is fairly close to downtown. So 377 is this highway coming in here, and downtown's right here. So if you buy in this area, you're going to be 5 to 10 minutes from downtown. And then the other area is back around this bend. It's kind of back over here towards De Cordova Bend. There is like a new development. I think it's like 12 homes or something like that are going to have lake access. And it's a gated community, real nice. So if you wanted to build, there's a few options there. But for the most part, there are subdivisions going in. Like a lot of them are back up in here behind HEB, and there's just little pockets of new home neighborhoods. And then on the other side of the lake, there's a lot of lots that have been picked up, and people are just building one-off houses. So a lot of new inventory, which is great because there's a supply issue here in the North Texas area, and the amount of houses going up has really helped balance out this market. So let's talk about lake homes. If you are retiring, you want to live on the lake, maybe that's something you're looking into. $130,000, you can get a single wide on the lake, or on a canal, I should say. And it goes up from there. If you're looking for like a traditional home, like maybe like a 1,500 square foot, something on the canal or on the main part of the lake, you're going to be looking at 300,000 plus. You're probably going to be closer to 4 and up from there. I think the price per square foot is somewhere around 300, depending on what it is. And that's the other thing. A lot of Grandbury, or what we call Grandbury, is outside city limits, and so for that reason, you get a little bit of everything. So yeah, $1 million is going to get you in a newer home, like in one of these coves. And I will say, like there's homes right along here and in Water's Edge, and I always call this Pelican Bay. Is it Pelican? Catalina Bay. Anyways, these are great places to live, close to everything. You have De Cordova, which is also a great community, really hard to find lake properties. There's just not that many of them. And then the other one that's very popular, Pecan Plantation. And if you're interested in these communities, we've got another video out that kind of dives into each one of the major communities here. Pecan Plantation doesn't really have any lake properties. They've got some that'll sit on this river, but there's a dam right here, so there's not access to the main part of the lake. So if you're somebody that likes the lake life, you might live in Pecan but have a boat somewhere else that you can take to the lake. But if you want something where you just walk out into the dock, hop onto the boat, then there's going to be a lot of good options through here. But Pecan Plantation may not be the right place for you. Okay, so let's talk real quick about the pros and cons of living in Grandbury. And I've got another video that's like, I think it's like everything. We'll link to the video, but that talks a little bit about the pros and cons in Grandbury. But just real quick overview, property taxes are generally going to be a lot lower than what you're going to find in the Metroplex in Dallas or Fort Worth. There's a lot of fun stuff to do, right? You've got a lake, you've got breweries, wineries. We mentioned all that fun stuff earlier, golf courses, all that kind of stuff. But there's not as much as if you were in Fort Worth, right? So, there's not a ton of comedy venues or trampoline parks or, the skydiving, indoor skydiving thing, like all that kind of stuff. It's not going to have it's not that big of a city, right? So it's not going to have all those things. We're just going to have a lot of other stuff, and it's a slower pace, right? So it's just a whole different vibe. It's a slower pace, super friendly, just like anywhere else, but you're not going to get that hustle and bustle and rush that you're going to feel in like Dallas. And then, I guess one of the downsides is the main road sucks. There's no way around it. The 377, once you get into town, it's just like stoplight city. And, that's one thing to think about if you are going to move here, depending if you are planning to commute to Fort Worth or somewhere up that direction, then living on, the Fort Worth side of the lake may be a huge benefit to you as far as time goes. But again, fantastic place to live. Healthcare, that's another thing. So there's not a ton of major hospitals here, right? So, which is a little bit odd considering it's such a good place to retire, but you're not far, right? I mean, you're 30 minutes to Fort Worth, and they do have like emergency care facilities and things like that. But okay, let's see what else. Normally we would give you a little home tour, but we're not going to be able to fit that into this video, but we've got other videos for that if you want to see what some of these houses look like in different price points. And if you are looking to buy here, a couple tips for you. So one thing is the neighborhoods are very different, right? So each neighborhood has a different feel, and depending on what you're looking for, it's going to be very different, right? So if you just have this blanket and you're like, I just want this house, you need to reconsider, what that means, right? So it's not just about the house. What do you want that neighborhood to be like? Because like I mentioned before, a lot of this is outside city limits. So you'll get, there's not a lot of rules, right? And if you're outside city limits on what you can build and what that looks like and how people take care of their properties and all that kind of stuff. So that's one thing to consider. And also, how much land do you want, right? If you are retiring, maybe you don't want a whole lot of land. There's quite a few properties where you get more, there's just bigger yards, right? That's why people moved out here. And so that's another thing to think about as well. And then buying on a lake. So if you are looking for a lake house, and I guess we'll jump into all the lake stuff. So as far as like buying a lake property, there's some different things that you should know. Number one is this is a flooded river, right? So Possum Kingdom feeds this lake. It used to be a constant level because there was a power plant on the lake, but they shut down that power plant. So now it doesn't maintain a constant level. So it will fluctuate. And one of the things to keep in mind with a flooded river is typically, when a river carves out its niche, it's not all flat, right? So whenever you're on a boat and you're going down the river or down the lake, you're going to notice that on one side, there's going to be hills or cliffs, and the other side, it's going to be pretty much flat, right? So when you are coming out here, if you're buying on that flat side, there's a chance that you're going to not have water under your boat if we go through a drought. If you're on the deep end of the lake, you're going to have water access pretty much no matter what. And so, what that kind of looks like here is, as the lake comes around this bend, you're going to have, it's going to be deeper on this end, and then it cuts back this way, and then here's your cliff side, and then when the river cuts again, this is going to be your deep side over here. And so, that's one thing to consider. And that's, whenever I've got a client, we've got an app that shows like all the water depths. So that's one thing that we consider whenever you're looking at lakefront property. Also, there's a lot of canals. They've built in a lot of canals. And the thing that you want to check on those is, number one, how deep is the canal, right? If the lake goes down, because it'll fluctuate probably, I don't know, typically 3 or 4 feet in a year. But if it goes below that, you want to make sure that there's still enough water in that canal. So that's another thing to check. And then the other thing too is like, so since water is let out at PK, when it is let out, there's a ton of debris that comes down the lake, the river, the lake, whatever you want to call it. And if you are in a canal and you're at the very end of a canal, depending on how that canal is positioned, a lot of time it's just like you're gonna catch all the debris. Like it sucks, but all the debris is gonna end up there while they're, when everything's rushing out, and then when everything calms down, it just sits around until the wind changes direction and hopefully blows it out. So if that's the case, that kind of stinks. And if you've never bought a lake house before, that's something you probably wouldn't think about, but that's something to consider. And then also, one of the best things is being in one of these coves, not peninsulas, coves. Being in a cove, or you can see how like this was built, and there's like a little exit right here. It's not all land, but this was built with like the seawall here, and this is awesome because, and I don't even know if I would want a house on the main part of the water. I mean, it's such a tricky thing. Like, it's a beautiful view and it's awesome, but what'll happen is on the days that it gets real busy, like any holiday, during peak season, during the summer, your boats will run up and down here, and there are buoys that mark the center of the channel, right? So whenever you're driving a boat out there, you want to keep towards the center, because if you get towards the edge, towards the flat edge, it's very easy to catch a tree. So there's always a couple boats that sink every year because they wandered off and hit a tree. So most people are going to be running up and down this canal, and since it is such a narrow lake, you get enough boats running up and down here, it's always choppy, right? So these folks in here, whenever they went to build this, I wasn't around when they built these, but if they intentionally put this wall up, kudos to them, because it's always common here. If you got kids over that they want to go swim in the lake or whatever, you can do it whenever. But if you were on the outside here and it's one of those really choppy days, then you're talking about a couple of feet of waves that could be crashing into everything, and it makes it real difficult. So that's another thing to consider when buying or building out here. And then also, the further north you go, it does get real narrow up in here, and at some point, you can kind of see. And then, so that's one thing. If you're going to be buying up in this area, you got to be a lot more cognizant of that. And then the other thing too, so they recently, I don't know, within the last couple months, they were not allowing any new building permits because they didn't have the capacity to deal with the sewage. So as far as the city of Grandbury goes, right now, outside city limits, everybody uses septic tanks. But and one of the things, that was the big issue, is where are we going to put a new treatment facility, because nobody wants it in their backyard. Well, it ended up, I don't know exactly where it is. It's kind of in this area. You can see all these houses that went up for sale. I don't know if this is why, but the Rucker Creek is, after it's treated, the extra water or whatever is dumped off into this creek. And so I don't know if there's a smell that comes out, with this treated water, or what that's like, but that's one thing to consider if you are looking to buy. Just be aware that's something that you'll want to look into, and which is I hope is not the case, because these are such nice properties over here. You can see how large these lots are. I mean, you've got these like rolling lots that go down to the water. They're just absolutely beautiful properties. But anyways, that is my take on Grandbury. Now, if there's anything I missed, anything you want to know, please do let me know in the comments. I would be happy to answer this for you. And as always, if you're looking to buy or sell, remember to keep calm. Call Tom.